Buckle up, everybody, because today's deep dive is gonna be a wild one. It's February 5th, 2025, and the news cycle is overflowing. We've got tech, we've got politics, we've got legal battles, and even some crypto stuff.
Yeah, it's kind of amazing how all these seemingly random stories actually connect back to the same big themes.
Right. Like, how about this whole thing with President Trump back in the White House already stirring up controversy?
Yeah, his decision to pardon those January 6th rioters has a lot of people on edge, especially the FBI.
They're worried about potential retaliation, aren't they, against the agents who investigated the whole Capitol attack thing?
I mean, you can't blame them for being concerned. This isn't just about one event, right? It's a symptom of this larger trend of political division and the erosion of trust in institutions. It makes you wonder about the long-term consequences of this kind of pardon and if it sets a precedent for future administrations.
And then there's Elon Musk. I swear he's everywhere these days. Not just launching rockets anymore, but diving headfirst into politics and finance with this whole DOGE cryptocurrency thing.
Yes, for those who might not be familiar with it, cryptocurrency is like digital money that operates outside of a central bank. And that's where this potential conflict of interest comes in with Musk. He's got government contracts through SpaceX, but he's also heavily promoting a specific cryptocurrency. So some people are wondering, should those two things really mix?
Yeah, it's definitely raising eyebrows. And speaking of raising eyebrows, Google's decision to scale back its diversity initiatives is causing quite a stir.
They're saying it's because of their role as a federal contractor.
But critics are calling it a step backward for inclusivity in the tech industry.
It is a complicated situation.
Yeah.
On the one hand, Google is saying they need to comply with federal regulations. On the other, their move is likely to impact the whole tech industry, potentially making it even harder for underrepresented groups to get their foot in the door.
Yeah, I can see how that would be a big concern. Then we've got President Trump proposing this really bold and some might even say outrageous plan for Gaza.
Taking control of the region and turning it into a Riviera of the Middle East.
It's definitely gotten people talking.
It's sparking strong reactions, for sure. Middle Eastern leaders are already condemning the proposal. There's even whispers that some Arab nations might be secretly supportive, but who knows?
Sounds like a pretty big gamble. Meanwhile, the International Criminal Court, or ICC, might be in President Trump's crosshairs again.
Right, the Senate Democrats just blocked sanctions against the court.
And there's talk he might retaliate.
If you look at it from a broader perspective, it seems President Trump's foreign policy is taking a much more assertive, almost confrontational approach. It's a stark contrast to the previous administration's diplomatic style.
Yeah, it's a huge shift, and it's making a lot of people nervous. On a lighter note, at least we have the Super Bowl to look forward to. Feels like we could all use a little distraction from all the global tension.
It's true. Even amidst global tensions and domestic controversies, life goes on issue. Sports and entertainment can provide a much-needed escape for many.
Speaking of entertainment, I read this story about two streamers who want to launch a GTA 6 server powered by cryptocurrency.
A crypto-fueled GTA 6 server, what does that even mean?
They're talking about integrating cryptocurrency right into the game so players can earn and spend digital currency within the game itself.
Oh, wow. That's a really interesting concept. It speaks to the growing influence of cryptocurrency and how it's starting to show up in unexpected places like the gaming industry. It'll be fascinating to see how Rockstar Games reacts to this.
Yeah, I'm curious too. Will they embrace it or try to shut it down? We'll have to wait and see. Okay, and before we move on, we have to talk about this breaking news. President Trump just signed an executive order banning transgender athletes from competing in women's sports.
It's a very controversial decision, raising lots of complex questions about transgender rights, fairness in sports, the role of government. The NCAA is currently reviewing the order, and several Democratic state attorneys general are already planning to challenge it in court.
Yeah, it's a sensitive issue for sure. Strong feelings on both sides.
It's really important for listeners to understand the context of this decision and its potential impact on the transgender community. It's not just about sports, but about identity, equality, and inclusion.
All right, let's shift gears a bit and talk business. Mark Zuckerberg's net worth has gone through the roof this year, thanks to Meta's success.
The rich get richer, right? It seems like the tech giants just keep getting bigger and more powerful. Makes you think about economic inequality and the growing concentration of wealth.
Yeah, and while Meta is booming, Amazon is busy developing new AI features for Alexa.
Oh.
Apparently, they're going to be even more advanced than what we have now, which could really shake up the voice assistant market.
The pace of AI development is mind-blowing. It's already changing how we live and work, and it's only going to become more influential.
Feels like we're living in a science fiction novel. And speaking of futuristic things, Uber is getting ready to launch Waymo's robo-taxi service in Austin, Texas.
No way.
Oh, yeah.
Self-driving cars are going mainstream, and this is going to have a huge impact on everything from transportation to city planning.
I can't wait to see how this plays out. Now, while all this is happening, I also came across some fantastic deals, clothing discounts at Joss a Bank kitchen gadgets on Amazon. It's a good reminder that even amidst all the chaos, there are still everyday things to enjoy.
It's all about finding balance,
Yep.
right? Staying informed about the big issues while also appreciating those little joys in life.
Exactly. But on a more serious note, there are signs of tension brewing between the Trump administration and some federal agencies.
Oh.
Like this story about a former Coast Guard leader reportedly evicted from her home with only 3 hours' notice.
3 hours. That's harsh.
Right. It's raising questions about due process and potential abuse of power.
It's a reminder that those in power should be held accountable. Their decisions need transparency and fairness.
And it's not just the Coast Guard. There are reports that the Trump administration is setting its sights on other agencies like the National Labor Relations Board or an NLRB.
The NLRB oversees labor relations.
And they've been getting some heat lately from companies like Amazon and SpaceX.
Sounds like the administration might be trying to reduce government oversight of certain industries, especially in the tech sector.
It'll be interesting to see what happens and what it means for workers' rights and protections.
It definitely highlights how politics, business, and the role of government are all connected.
Okay, we've covered a lot of ground. I feel like we're just getting started. We're going to take a quick break to regroup, but we'll be back soon to dive even deeper into all this fascinating news, so stick with us.
So we've seen how these big players like President Trump and Elon Musk are using their power. Now let's zoom in on how their actions are impacting the government itself.
Yeah, it seems like there's a lot of change happening within different federal agencies.
Like, for instance, did you see the reports about the Trump administration offering buyouts to employees at the IRS? You know, the agency that collects taxes?
Oh, yeah. What about it?
Well, get this. Some of those IRS workers who took the buyouts are now being told they have to work through tax season anyway.
Really? That seems a little chaotic, don't you think?
It definitely raises some questions about how effective that strategy really is. Is it really about making the agency more efficient? Or is there something else going on here? And we can't forget about the potential impact on essential services like family. Tax season is already stressful enough for everyone. Imagine adding this on top of it.
Yeah, that's definitely something to keep an eye on. Speaking of keeping an eye on things, the Trump administration's approach to diversity and inclusion seems a bit, well, inconsistent.
How so?
On one hand, they're scaling back those DEI efforts at Google, like we talked about earlier, but then on the other hand, they're making a big deal about prioritizing complaints of anti-Semitism in schools.
Yeah, you're right. That does seem a bit contradictory. But it kind of reflects the complex reality of policymaking. There are always so many different interests and priorities at play. Finding the right balance can be really tough.
It's like they're walking a tightrope, trying to please everyone, but maybe ending up satisfying no one.
Exactly. And while they're busy balancing all that, there are protests happening all over the country over the administration's immigration policies.
It feels like this whole immigration debate has been going on forever, and it's like we're no closer to finding a solution that works for everyone.
It's a really complex issue. It always seems to trigger strong emotions and deeply held beliefs about what it means to be American, about security and economic opportunity.
It's not just the domestic issue either. Did you hear President Trump is reportedly planning to pull all U.S. troops out of Syria?
Whoa, that's huge. That could have serious consequences for the entire region. Imagine a power vacuum. It could easily lead to more instability and potentially even strengthen groups like ISIS.
It feels like a risky move. But then
Yeah.
again, President Trump's never been one to shy away from shaking things up on the world stage. I guess he's really determined to redefine America's role in global affairs.
It's definitely a bold strategy. I guess
Yeah.
we'll have to see how it all plays out.
Yeah, only time will tell. But hey, amidst all this global turmoil and domestic unrest, at least we have the Super Bowl this weekend. Seems like everyone's looking forward to a little break from the news.
Totally. It reminds us that even in tough times, we all need ways to connect and experience joy. Shared events like the Super Bowl can really bring communities together, even if it's just for a few hours.
So true. Speaking of coming together, I actually came across this story about an unexpected moment of bipartisan cooperation in Congress.
Really? What happened?
Well, it seems like both Democrats and Republicans are actually united in their concern about Elon Musk's influence over the government.
Wow, that's interesting. It's not often you see both sides of the aisle agree on something. It seems like there's some issues that just transcend those partisan divides. Maybe Elon Musk's power and influence is one of them.
Yeah, they're especially worried about his involvement with that cryptocurrency, DOGE, and whether it's a conflict of interest considering his government contracts with SpaceX. It's almost like everyone's putting their differences aside and saying, wait a minute, let's take a closer look at this.
It's a good reminder that even with all the political polarization, there's still room for common ground, especially when it comes to issues that affect the integrity of our institutions.
Okay, we've talked about some pretty serious stuff so far. Let's lighten things up a bit and explore some interesting developments in the tech world.
Sounds good. What have you got?
Well, I came across this company called Mind Studio. They're making some serious waves with their AI-powered business automation software.
Mind Studio. I haven't heard of them. What do they do?
Basically, they're using artificial intelligence to make business operations more efficient. Their software can automate tasks, analyze data, and even make predictions about future trends.
Wow, that's pretty impressive. It sounds like it could be a real game changer for businesses, especially in today's fast-paced, data-driven world.
Exactly. It's a great example of how AI is becoming a part of our everyday lives. And it's not just about robots and self-driving cars anymore. It's about using technology to make our work lives easier and more productive.
It's about leveraging the power of technology to create new opportunities and solve real problems.
Couldn't have said it better myself. And while we're on the subject of technology and innovation, we should circle back to that story about a crypto-fueled GTA 6 server. Remember that?
Oh yeah, that's right. The one where players could earn and spend cryptocurrency within the game.
Exactly. It's such a cool concept. It's like merging the world of gaming with the world of finance. It could totally change the way we think about gaming in online communities.
Imagine a virtual world where you can earn and spend cryptocurrency to buy and sell things. It's like taking the concept of in-game currency to a whole new level.
It would be a bold experiment for sure. And like with any new frontier, there will be challenges and risks to navigate. But the potential for innovation is definitely there.
Absolutely. It's definitely something to keep our eyes on.
Okay, before we move on to our final segment, there's one more important development we need to discuss. You remember the International Criminal Court? The ICC?
Yeah, the one President Trump might be targeting.
Well, it seems like they're facing their own set of legal challenges right now.
Oh, right. The Senate Democrats blocked those sanctions against the court, didn't they?
Yeah, exactly. Which puts them in a tough spot. And to make matters even more complicated, President Trump has a history of clashing with the ICC. So this latest development could reignite that tension.
It's such a complicated situation. International law, U.S. politics, and President Trump's personal views are all tangled up in this. It's like a real-life legal drama playing out on the world stage.
Totally. It's going to be interesting to see how it all unfolds.
It just goes to show that even when we're focused on what's happening here at home, global events still have a huge impact on our world.
Okay, we're going to pause here for a second and gather our thoughts. But before we go, I just want to emphasize how much ground we've covered today. From political power struggles and AI advancements to international relations and even those little moments of joy and hope, we've really gotten a sense of just how dynamic and interconnected our world truly is.
And as we move into our final segment, I want you to think about how all these seemingly separate stories might actually be connected. Are there any patterns or trends emerging? What do these stories tell us about the state of our world?
We'll be exploring those questions and more in our final installment where we'll try to connect the dots and leave you with some food for thought. Okay, we're back for our final look at today's news. It's been a whirlwind tour, from presidential pardons and Elon Musk's crypto ventures to global power shifts and AI-powered businesses.
Yeah, we've really gone deep, haven't we? But now's the fun part. Trying to connect the dots and see what we can learn, because it's not just about knowing what happened, but understanding why it matters.
Exactly. So if we take a step back and look at the big picture, what are the big takeaways here? What's the story beneath all these stories?
Well, one theme that keeps popping up is this idea of power and who has it. We see it with President Trump and his sweeping actions, from pardons to policy changes. We see it with Elon Musk and how his influence is growing in tech, finance, even government. And we see it in how these giant tech companies like Google are adapting to this changing political landscape.
It really does feel like a giant game of chess, doesn't it? With these powerful players making moves that affect everyone else on the board.
Exactly. And it makes you think about who benefits from these power shifts and who might get left behind.
Yeah.
Are these concentrations of power actually serving the public good? Or are they creating new inequalities and vulnerabilities?
That's a great question. One we should all be thinking about. We also saw this tension between individual rights and collective interests. The debate over transgender athletes in sports is a perfect example.
It's a classic dilemma.
Yeah.
How do we balance the rights of individuals with the needs and values of the community? And how do we make sure everyone feels seen, heard, and respected, even when there are disagreements?
It's a tough balance to strike, and it requires a lot of empathy, open-mindedness, and a willingness to listen to each other, even when it's hard.
I completely agree. Another big takeaway from today is the incredible speed of technological development. From AI-powered automation to self-driving cars, we're seeing things that could completely change our lives.
I know, it's exciting, but also a little scary. It feels like we're on the edge of something brand new, but we don't know exactly what it's going to look like.
That's why it's so important to stay informed and think critically about these new technologies.
Right.
What are the potential benefits? What are the risks? How can we make sure these advances are used ethically and responsibly for the good of everyone?
It's a lot to think about. Technology is a powerful tool, but it's up to us to decide how we use it. You mentioned earlier about finding those little glimmers of hope in the midst of all this chaos.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I was really struck by how even with all the political drama and global uncertainty, there were still these stories of people being resilient, people coming together for the Super Bowl, finding joy in everyday things, and even those surprising moments of bipartisan cooperation in Congress.
It reminds us that even when things are tough, the human spirit finds a way. We connect, we celebrate, we find meaning and purpose in our lives. And those moments, no matter how small, are worth holding on to.
So true. So as we wrap up this deep dive into today's news, we want to leave you with one final thought. We've seen how individuals like President Trump and Elon Musk are shaping the world around us. Will their influence change the balance of power in the long run? What does it mean for everyday people like us? And what role will you play in shaping the future?
We've given you the information. Now it's your turn to dig deeper. Think critically, stay curious, and engage with the world, because the future is being written right now, and your voice matters. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive. We'll see you next time.
See ya!